Stephen Timms.
Speaker, I'm pleased to follow the honourable member for Glasgow East, and I congratulate him on his appointment. This order is an annual routine, but this year it's different. The number claiming universal credit has more or less doubled since last March. We're still in a global pandemic, and the order would dramatically cut the universal credit standard allowance. We've been reminded already by my honourable friend on the front bench that for 4 years, 2016 to 2020, people claiming around half the benefits covered by this order had their incomes frozen, no longer connected at all to the cost of living. The House of Commons Library estimated in 2018 that this year working age social security spending would be £37 billion per year, less than in 2010 in real terms, 2018-19 prices. And the Resolution Foundation says much the same, coming up with a figure of social security spending around 34 billion lower in 23-24 than if the 2010 system had remained in place. People claiming universal credit and working tax credit had a temporary increase of £20 a week. Now that costs about 1/6 of the real terms cut in annual working age benefits since 2010, less than 3% of overall pandemic support. Now, the Minister was right to say that people are scared about the prospect of losing the £20 a week increase. And I think he was kind of hinting, saying, well, don't worry, it isn't really going to happen. But the answer to that problem is not to suggest that other members of the House shouldn't be talking about this issue. The answer is for the government to make a clear statement that they're not going to go ahead with their current policy, which is to cut the benefit in April. And I do hope we don't have to wait until the budget, which is still another, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 3 weeks away, before we have an announcement about what exactly the government's policy is. The Joseph Rowntree Foundation says that withdrawing the temporary increase will risk sweeping 500,000 more people, including 200,000 more children, into poverty. And in its report this morning that's been referred to, the Work and Pensions Committee unanimously, on a cross-party basis, called on the Chancellor, as others have already in this debate, to extend the increase for at least a year. We're joined in that call by lots of organisations, by the Right Honourable Member for Chingford and Woodford Green, who I can see in the chamber, for Preseli, Pembrokeshire, both former Secretaries of State, many other members opposite. We've just heard from the Honourable Member for North Thanet, and also by the House of Lords Economic Affairs Committee, chaired by the Noble Lord Forsyth. The Joseph Rowntree Foundation quotes a woman in London saying that £20 is often the difference between light and heat or no light and heat. As she goes on, if you don't have gas, you can't cook. That is what many people have been up against in the pandemic. That support must not be withdrawn next month. The report also looks at the idea, which has been floated, of removing the increase but giving instead a lump sum, perhaps £1,000, equivalent to a year's worth of the increase. The committee is strongly opposed. It is a very bad idea. And the Secretary of State for Work and Pensions made clear to the committee last week that she rightly opposes it. As Citizen Advice told us, I quote, having a stable, regular income is the best way to support people to budget and manage their money. The attraction for the Treasury, of course, would be the hope of withdrawing the increase without people noticing. It would not work. People claiming benefits other than universal credit and working tax credit have seen, as we've been reminded, no increase at all. Our report in June, as we've been reminded by the Honourable Member for Glasgow East, we recommended increasing legacy benefits by the same amount. Our report said, and I quote, that doesn't mean that the government should simply ignore the needs of those people who are claiming, through no fault of their own, benefits which rely on outdated and complex administrative systems. benefits for disabled people, people with health conditions, for carers. We recommend the Department should immediately seek to increase the rates of relevant legacy benefits by the equivalent amount. Now, since then, Madam Deputy Speaker, the government has steadfastly refused. The Prime Minister told the Liaison Committee recently it's because the government, I quote, wants everybody to move on to universal credit. But until 2 weeks ago, people receiving severe disability premium were prevented by law from doing so. It's been argued recently against the increase in legacy benefits that the universal credit rise was to help people claiming for the first time rather than those already claiming. But that was not what the Chancellor said in announcing the increase on the 20th of March last year. He said it was, I quote, to benefit over 4 million of our most vulnerable households. That is, the 4 million claiming universal credit and working tax credit at the time. And all the other equally vulnerable households to those 4 million, and many more vulnerable than those 4 million, have had no extra help at all. This order increases disability-related benefits by 0.5% at most. Now, should disabled people have had some extra help during the pandemic? The Secretary of State told the Select Committee last week that she was, I quote, not aware specifically of extra costs that would have been unduly incurred by disabled people during the pandemic. Now, I spoke to a constituent, a disabled single parent with 2 daughters, one of whom is herself disabled. She used to search for bargains in local markets and supermarkets. In the pandemic, she's had to stay safe and not do that. She pays £1.50 or £2 for what used to cost her £1. She feels very hurt by having had no extra help for those extra costs. Others have to pay supermarket delivery charges, £4 or £5 a time. Another £4 if you buy less than the minimum £40 order. That is a big chunk out of an income of £74.70. The Select Committee's coronavirus survey last year showed people claiming disability benefits having substantial additional costs, extra cleaning, carers' protective equipment. And last week, the Disability Benefits Consortium, in a survey that my honourable friend referred to, new survey of disabled people claiming legacy benefits, found that 82% have had to spend more than normal during the pandemic, and 2/3 have had to go without essentials at some point over the last year. That is the evidence the Secretary of State said last week she hadn't seen. It is very clear, and I do hope the Minister will reflect on it. Unpaid carers have borne an extraordinary burden in the pandemic. Carers' allowance is going to rise under this order by 35p per week. Carers UK is calling it for it increased by £20 like universal credit. The standard minimum guarantee in pension credit will be raised. That is welcome. But take-up of pension credit remains much too low. The Minister for Pensions wrote to the committee last week with an estimate of 63% for pension credit take-up. The charity Independent Age called today for a new written strategy on pension credit uptake, including trial automatic enrolment. And they estimate that, I quote, the cost to the government of those eligible but not receiving pension credit is £4 billion a year in increased NHS and social care spending. That is a powerful reminder. Madam Deputy Speaker, scrimping on Social Security imposes large additional costs elsewhere. The British Association of Social Workers has pointed out that the start of real terms working age Social Security cuts in 2010 marked the start of a big surge of children being taken into care, imposing very large new costs on the exchequer. We need to make sure the social security system has the resources to do the job that all of us agree it should do. That means maintaining the £20 a week rise in universal credit for at least another year and making sure legacy benefit claimants can at last get extra help as well.